something and lie. I know. Well, I'm going to have us finish up a little bit early today because we have a town hall in this room after worship. I need to make sure that all the parts are moving before. So, well, I have sweet treats too and everything. So, yes. Question about the town hall, Linda? Yes?
I'm not hearing.
Oh, we have a town hall in here after worship. And I just want to make sure that a few things, like I'm looking for the coffee cups right now, and I'm thinking, what happened to the coffee? No. Are we good to go? Oh, is it on? Is it not working? Oh, and it is. I know it doesn't work for the people in the room. I do know that. So I will make sure to be loud in here. It does feel a little bit louder in here today. Okay. So today we're talking about coins, and I did have a hard time finding any coins in my house even today. And this week I was thinking, I used to have a bunch of coins, like, I think I had like a coin collection at one point. My grandpa had a coin collection. But, you know, I've tried to put out things on this table to like help us think about the topic. And instead I just have our little patents, yes. I have these today, and I have our fish, because the kids have already been given these for one grade hour of sharing, and on Palm Sunday we'll see them processed with a bunch of little fish, and then they'll give it up, and we'll hear them clinking maraca style down the center of the aisle. But I'm wondering, do any of you have coin collection? Oh, this is a memory, right? This is about Mr. Portocalis from Big Fat Greek Wedding. So what I am trying to help us do, oh my goodness, is every time we see whatever we're talking about this week it's coins, we're trying to think, how do we get back to God? What is the thing about this normal, ordinary dime, this penny, that I can make religious, right? And I mean that in a spiritual way. How can I make this a spiritual act, this simple thing in front of me? How does this little piggy bank, little fishy bank, how is this spiritual? What is that? So just like Mr. Portocalis makes everything Greek, we make everything about God, right? But I'm wondering about coins. I know that there's a big move to make the penny no longer, right? There's a big, do any of you have coins right now in your pockets? That's what I'm wondering. You all do? Okay, John does. Linda has some. Do you use them regularly? What do you use them for?
Change.
Okay.
Sometimes if someone says to me that this costs $1.46, I love putting down the 46 cents plus $1.
Yeah.
Nobody has to give me $2. Very proud of it.
Yes.
Also, I try to avoid what you might see elderly people doing.
Well, no one would think you would be doing that, John. Counting it out. So like any everyday stuff, you use coins still. Linda, are you using coins for something specific regularly?
I actually, they show up.
Okay.
Because you get change, and I don't count the change. Sometimes it's 90, $1 or $2, and I get 98 cents worth of change.
Yes.
So I'm paying it back, and I put it in the piggy bank. And through the years, what would happen just before Easter, I would empty my piggy bank and sort these out. And for Easter egg hunt, I put all the coins in
Yes.
into the little egg hunt.
Oh, you jogged my memory. I forgot that my Easter egg, my great-grandma, like at my great-aunt's house, we would do our Easter egg hunt there. And we'll talk about that on Palm Sunday. I think I'll do a talk about what my my Easter was like as a child, because we would do something with Easter eggs that was very specific. But some of the Easter eggs, you could feel that they had something very heavy in them, and you got a whole dollar because somebody had put 4 quarters in all of the like some of the Easter eggs. But I forgot about that. I go searching for quarters bi-weekly, I would say, because I pay for laundry right now. Like, we don't have an in-unit laundry. We have it in the basement. And so I'm normally on a coin hunt in ways that I don't want to be, because all I want to do is my laundry, right? And I'm like, I need to go buy something so that I can get quarters. Or my roommate has some stashed away that I will use and then try to put back, But then again, I have to look for quarters, because I don't normally have cash on myself either. That's. I think it kind of happened because of COVID, I would say. That so many places weren't taking cash for a while, especially in the city, because it was dirtier to like touch when we were worried about surfaces. Coins just appear less in my own life than it used to when I was a kid. I would scrounge after pennies in the couch cushions. I did look in my couch cushion this morning, and I will admit I was looking for my keys, but I thought, oh, while I'm down here, if I find any coins, I'll bring them to work to use. So, of course, in the first century, they were using coins for everything, right? No paper money. So coins were very important to them because that was their only kind of money. So the biblical stories of coins, what do you think of? She talked about a few, but is there one that you'd like to bring up to us?
Obviously, render unto Caesar.
Yes.
Images on the coin.
Yes, and this is supposedly the coin that they would have been talking about. That's a denarius.
We've taken that up through the past years. Right now, actually, it's like government wants to sell coins.
Yes.
So they made the quarters. So we started with the quarters of all the states.
Mm-hmm.
Then I managed to collect all of
Did you?
both of the mints, both in Denver and Philadelphia. Then they started in on the national parks. They did now that. And they're doing something else now. I've given up. But it was for a long time. You seriously
Yeah.
went out to buy.
Well, we had a map that was, I think my grandparents gave it to us, actually. My dad's parents gave us the map with so that you'd have every state. And so it was just us stealing our parents' quarters every time they went to the store. It was like, oh, what'd you get? Anything new? I remember when the state coins were first coming out then. I think I remember that. Yes, render to Caesar what is Caesar. Any of the other coin stories?
Poor widow with the two.
The widow's mite. Yeah.
Was her donation more than the Pharisee who comes in with his beliefs?
Yeah. I don't think we did this in service, but I think we were thinking about it for our stewardship back in November. Susan was here, had come across something about the trumpets that would have happened when somebody gave, they were trumpet style. So when you would give coins to the temple, you'd put them in this kind of tube. And I'm thinking of the bank, of course. It's not like this because it was rattly, like metal. But when you would throw one coin in, it would just sound like, right? And it would roll around. But when you would throw a bunch in, it would be like, right? Like going down, down. So the widow's mite, like the one thing that she would have put down would have just sounded like just one sound throughout the temple. And for Jesus's ear to have heard that and then not, that story is not that Jesus doesn't care about the people giving a lot, but it's something about that hollow sound of just one thing rather than the raindrop kind of metal sounding on a hot tin roof, if you will. That there's something about that story with that woman giving everything she has and the sound of it. It is a very sensory experience that Jesus is recalling or having them all think of because they would have known the sound of giving money in the church, right? We've kind of lost that because especially now we're not passing. And if you give online, it's just the click of keys, right? It would just be this sound, right? not as exciting. There's something about that sound. Okay, wait. Are there any other coin stories that you want to bring up? Yes? The 30 pieces of silver, Judas, right? And in the book, she talked about how, was it really that he needed 30 pieces of silver, right? Is it really about the coins themselves that Judas does this? It's a devotional, so she's not getting into the nitty-gritty of it. But what did that money represent to him? What did that money signal, or what could those coins have done that he wasn't seeing that Jesus could also do, right? That there was a bartering between a person and money, and Judas had equated the two. I'm going to take us to the render unto Caesar what is Caesar's passage. Mark 12, I always like to go to Mark because Mark is an urgent man. He writes, and he means immediately. All of the Markan gospel is immediately, Jesus goes here, right? So he's short and sweet. Then he sent to him some Pharisees and some Herodians to trap him in what he said. And they came and said to him, "Teacher, we know that you are sincere and show deference to no one. For you do not regard people with partiality, but teach the way of God in accordance with the truth. Is it lawful to pay taxes to the emperor or not? Should we pay them or should we not?" In their hypocrisy, he said to them, "Why are you putting me to the test? Bring me a denarius and let me see it." And they brought one. Then he said, "Whose head is this, and whose title?" They answered, "The emperor's." Jesus said, "Emperor, the thing emperor." And they were utterly amazed at him. Does anything pop out to you right away that you didn't notice before, or that struck you on the first reading? Seems pretty what you expect it to be.
Part that says, "And to God, the things that are God, that I never thought about until right now, but then you mean everything."
Mm-hmm. Yeah, Jesus gets out of this question actually because of that part, right? Because Jesus says, "Sure, give to Caesar that coin. I don't really care about that coin, right? Our God is the God of everything that you see. So God's face is on everything then, right?" That's how Jesus gets out of this trap, because of course they're trying to trap him. And it says they're trying to trap him, right? Herodians to trap him in what he said. So here's a question. This will be really hard, because if he says we shouldn't pay our taxes, we can go tell someone and they can arrest him, right? You have something, Judy? No? So she writes, "Questions about turning over the coins in our pockets mask the real struggle of giving our entire lives to God. The question that follows of Jesus must ask is not, should we pay our taxes, but rather, are all our loyalties and everything we value penultimate to the Lord of all? So is everything God's that we see? And then everything else is Caesar's?" This tax season, I don't know if you know this, but it's right around Easter. April 15th is Good Friday, and it's Passover. But we don't have to pay our taxes till April 18th. I'm keeping that date very much in mind myself. I was involved in my own taxes for the first time this year. My dad said, "You're done with school. You need to come home and do your taxes," which I'm very lucky that I had. Just TurboTax. He's not an accountant by any means. But I was wondering how you all feel about taxes. Of course, there is I know. How do you feel about taxes? Right? We're in church. Do we ever talk about taxes?
Doctors had an answer for that.
Okay.
There are only two things in life that are certain: death and taxes.
Death and taxes.
The difference between them is that death doesn't get worse every time.
Oh, that's good. I didn't know who said it, but I do know the death and taxes line.
First thing I think about with taxes is guilt.
Guilt?
Guilt.
Oh,
Yeah.
We get teachers' retirement and we're not taxed at that level. On a state level. On the state level, yeah. We pay federal taxes, but not state taxes.
Okay.
You can always contribute. I do.
But that's like, you feel like I'm getting this money and yet I'm not paying taxes on it? Is that how it?
Exactly.
Because when you were a teacher, you paid taxes on your income?
And everything.
Okay. So it feels like, well, we did that forever, but we're not doing it on our...
No pensions are taxed in Illinois.
Okay. It's an Illinois thing. Gotcha. I should stay in Illinois if I'm going to be ordained, is what I'm hearing. There's a long history of civil disobedience, is what it would be called, right? This is Thoreau. This is an actual dollar that they're like civil disobedience folks send to the IRS instead of paying their taxes. I am by no means, I'll say this to the camera so that everyone at home knows this as well. I am by no means saying don't pay your taxes. I am just thinking, people have thought about their money in a theological way for years and years, right? Thoreau, I just heard today, actually, he was 28 when he decided to go to Walden. That seems very young to me, to be civilly disobedient. He went to Walden and said, I will not be part of this world anymore. I will not pay my taxes to a government that does not align with my beliefs. I found do you guys know Jim Wallace, who started like Sojourners? He's kind of a moderate, I would say he's like maybe a progressive evangelical kind of man. Sojourners is a magazine that has been for a long time. This is his thought about taxes. The state's demand for war taxes put many Christians in a dilemma in which peace claims their commitment, but war claims their money. Personal and corporate response to the payment of war taxes is a thorny and serious question, one which must become a matter of much more public discussion and discernment in the Christian community. With heightening the nuclear arms race and widening the conflict in Central America, our stand on war tax resistance has remained resolute. We cannot, with good conscience, provide our government, through our tax dollars, with the necessary means for its nuclear threats and ideological military exploits. So I have never done this, of course. This is another one of his, he goes on to say, the payment of taxes is the most basic and the most basic and, from the government's point of view, most important way that we support the policies of the state. With hardly an afterthought, American Christians in recent times, and he wrote this during Vietnam, I believe, in recent times have given more money to underwrite military destruction and help build the most massive arsenal in human history than we have given to pay for relief, service, evangelism, mission, social action, and all other programs of the churches combined. So I had my favorite professor in Princeton was an ethics professor, and he had studied in Oklahoma. And one of his professors, who was a brilliant ethicist and pacifist, was one of his main commitments. He every year would take out the exact percentage that would have gone to the military budget of his taxes, wrote a letter to the IRS, and said, "This is what I'm doing. You will not see this percentage of money," and sent it to the IRS. And his whole life, he was always in court and being summoned to go to jail because he withheld money that the IRS was due. But his commitment to pacifism said, I will not contribute this amount that I know will go somewhere, because he said that makes me complicit. So the question I think I have is, how do we think, because I think that is a genuine commitment to have, and a way to, ever since I've known that story, I have struggled with my own complicity when it comes to money, right? We give this money away and we say, I hope it goes to good use. And we can pray that our government uses it wisely, that they use the resources wisely that we give them to bring justice, right? That's what we would hope. That's what we pray for on Sundays. And yet, there's that gnawing that I feel about, oh yeah, I don't know that I would be for, a nuclear blow up of the world if that's what was to happen, and yet my money would be contributing to it, right? So how do we think these things together? How do we think, give to Caesar what is Caesar's, what Jesus says to the disciples, and the idea that the money that we do give to Caesar sometimes goes to things that we wouldn't in our own way ever do?
One of the key things that we keep hearing is essentially don't think about money. You have only one allegiance.
Mm-hmm.
And if you don't fret and stew about it, it isn't dominating your life.
Mm-hmm.
So it's sort of maybe a ostrich in the sand approach, but I have to do this.
Yeah.
You know, so why should it take away from the joys and blessings of my everyday life?
Mm-hmm.
I get all hot and bothered over the fact that this year I really owe the town.
Mm-hmm.
And
Yeah.
it,
Like, what am I supposed to do?
okay, well, I was able to pay that, so maybe that's just a sign that I need to do with what's left over something.
Mm-hmm. Get involved in another way, right? That it's not that I will pay my taxes and yet I will fight. I will write a letter. I will.
I would just not, you can only have one master, and I won't let it master me.
Mm-hmm. Were you gonna say something, Roy?
Well, Christ didn't tell him to take this coin and then parse it out in your own little head about how much belongs to Caesar. He said it belongs to Caesar.
Mm-hmm.
So we'll just have to
Let it belong to Caesar.
take it on
Yeah.
faith that that's how it's going to be spent.
Yes. There's, of course, probably some of you, I'm thinking of you because you were a history teacher, thinking, well, the government didn't work the same way, right? They were not in a democracy where when they gave to Caesar what is Caesar's, they were in an empire, right? They didn't have much say at all to begin with either. So it's not a one-to-one, which is what we should remember when it comes to something like this, that it's not the same form of government, and yet we are being asked to give to Caesar, give to the government what is the government's, right? It doesn't control you. There's something else. Thoreau went to Walden because of the Mexican-American War, and he refused to pay his income taxes because he disagreed with it. So he spent one night in jail. That's all he ever had to spend. But he wrote Civil Disobedience, which is the essay about what it means to think of yourself as a citizen and what it means to be disobedient. I think of, he just passed away. John Lewis, is that who I mean? On the bridge? The Good Trouble. I think of like civil disobedience and good trouble, that there might be clever ways to hope that our money does do something to bring justice. The justice that we pray about, the justice that we hope. Jesus was thinking of, even though he said, give to Caesar what is Caesar, right?
But you have to value what that's all your values. Refusing vaccine is civil disobedience.
Mm-hmm. I know, yeah.
And there's a lot of other things that if we were to get to make every individual decision about everything would be a mess. Nothing would ever.
Yes.
You also have to put Thoreau in his place and time. He was a child of New England,
Mm-hmm.
and there were a lot of New Englanders who wanted nothing to do with the Mexican War
Mhm.
because they viewed it as an attempt by the slaveholding South to simply expand slavery.
Mhm.
And slavery was already established in the Republic of Texas.
Mm-hmm.
And there was this movement to bring Texas into the Union. Thoreau didn't like that idea because that would be this humongous slave state coming.
Mhm.
You have to put Thoreau in his
Yeah.
place. Actually, there were a lot of New Englanders who agreed with him.
I think about Vermont, right? What's Vermont's, do I mean New Vermont or New Hampshire? Live free or die. Like,
In fact, I wrote that.
because I'm not going to, like, the thought of, like, I'm not going to be part of that, right? So that he saw his own civil disobedience as connected to a larger picture, that it wasn't just I don't know how taxes worked at this time. I don't know if it was state and federal, I will admit. but his money that was going to the government, that it would be part of this larger story that would bring slavery into more of America, that would condone treating people harshly, that it was connected to something else, right?
They didn't have any protection. No, that was
Lincoln put in an income tax during the Civil War, but then the Supreme Court declared it unconstitutional.
Which is,
So it didn't come until 1913.
So
yeah.
what was Thoreau?
What were the taxes?
Taxes was he so upset?
That's a really good question. I don't know what tariffs.
On things that you would buy. So
So he was an indirect cost to him.
exactly.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
Exactly.
Which is why he went out to Walden. Yeah. So he receded. There's a
That's what we're doing right now, is they don't buy anything that is Russian.
right. No Moscow mules for you guys. That's what I hear. No Moscow mules. No Russian vodka. I know that some of you. So there are ways to think about our coins, even if they're not rattling in your pocket, the way that we spend our money and how it's connected to a larger story of what our government does with it, what a business does with it, that there are ways to be thoughtful with how we use our money. I want to get us to, yeah.
Didn't Jesus, he just meant that the money for taxes is the government's business, and the other parts of your life, how you behave in that, that's God's business. But
Don't mix them. That's one way to interpret it. Being a citizen in the first century is a lot different than how we think of being a citizen here today. It's a very different kind of experience, even if you talk about the military, like being in the military. So if we were having a lesson about like just war or something, and like Jesus's ideas about war, that's such a different conversation to us here, because we can elect to be part of a war. We live in the U.S., or like we can enlist. Of course there's been drafts, but in Christians, the first Christians were not people that would have been in the military. They were not that rank of people. So Jesus wasn't really ever talking about how to be a Christian soldier, right? Of course, we can think about what it would mean to be a Christian soldier and what Jesus might say about that, but that's not quite, like, Jesus isn't really talking to our context. So we have to think about what it would mean to give Caesar what is Caesar's if we live in a democracy more than we live in an imposed imperial system, right? Yeah.
didn't Paul say the same thing about the rulers are put in place
Mm-hmm.
to keep the people in line because God is appointed?
Yes. Yeah. But even when we get to Augustine, he has a different idea about being a citizen than Paul and Jesus and the disciples would have, because things had changed already. And then, right? Like, things... Yes, by the time Augustine got there. So to be a citizen in the Roman Empire meant something completely different to Augustine than it means to Jesus, right? So in every place, we have to think about what it means to be a Christian where we are, and not just think, well, Jesus meant this there, and our lives must be completely separate, right? Because what Arlo pulled up, the thought about this last sentence, and to God the things that are God's. I don't think that's necessarily Jesus saying that coin isn't God's, right? Because if everything is God's, then how would one thing not be, right? And yet, there is a call to be a good citizen in that time. Any thoughts that are coming up? Linda, I see a thinking face. No? The money changer situation of Jesus in the temple is also a coin situation that only a couple years ago I started hearing about it differently, so I wonder if this is familiar to you. But in Matthew it says, and this is during Holy Week, this would have been like Tuesday perhaps, Monday or Tuesday, early in the week of Holy Week. Then Jesus entered the temple and drove out all who were selling and buying in the temple, and he overturned the tables of the money changers and the seats of those who sold doves. He He said to them, "It is written, my house shall be called a house of prayer, but they are making it a den of robbers." So, she talks a little bit about, what's the big deal? People needed money. People needed money to go to the temple to buy their sacrifices, to, give their doves, to, they've traveled a long way. They can't bring these things with them from out in the country, right? So what is the problem with, why does Jesus turn the tables and make unfair rate of exchange? Yes. Yes, exploit, yeah.
Well, because I had a different, listening to this and reading something about the fact that this was a normal, the temple had various sections.
Yes.
And that first part was essentially your town square,
Mm-hmm.
where everybody came, everybody met, we had parties, we talked, we had picnics, and you have your stalls to buy, just like you do on Saturday morning in Deerfield.
Yeah.
But as the verse says, there were those who were taking advantage
Mm-hmm.
of the poor and the
Yeah.
foreigners.
Mm-hmm.
That was the problem. It wasn't the fact that they were selling things in,
Mm-hmm.
and I had never really known that.
Mm-hmm.
Once I understood the history of the temple,
Yes. That it's the closer you get in, it would be a big deal if they were, if you were in the Holy of Holies selling something, you'd be in trouble.
you're just out there getting ready
Yeah.
to go to church.
Yeah. So it's that these money changers, Jesus is upset because he sees exploitation. He sees these people have no choice but to change their money right here. And these people are hiking up prices. They might be soapbox preaching a little bit of like reminding people like, haven't you done this, 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 and this year? Right? It's right before Passover, so we're getting all things in line. So shouldn't you atone for more and more and more and more? Right? I think of indulgences in like the early Roman Empire. Well, not early, even Luther, right? One of Luther's reasons to be upset. And so I was thinking, what are the places today where we see exploitative financial practices, right? Do you have any off the top of your head? I have a few.
Some TV evangelists.
TV evangelists, yeah.
Also some robocalls.
Yes.
The robocall that offended me the most.
Yeah.
I was home by myself. Phone rang. It was a rainy Sunday afternoon. I picked it up and it said, "This is the St. Mary's Prayer Ministry.
Hmm.
If you are in need of prayer, press 1." And I found out later. I hung up.
Yeah.
I found out later that if you press 1, the next thing is they'd ask for your credit card. And I thought that was the lowest thing I have ever.
It makes you sick.
They could contact someone who's vulnerable, someone who has just lost a loved one,
Mm-hmm.
devastating diagnosis or something, and talk about using prayer to exploit someone. That to me, I was furious.
Yeah.
Livid.
Yeah. I hadn't even thought of that, but that is like a perfect like culmination of why it's a certain group of people that might be extra vulnerable to give up information that they wouldn't otherwise, or they don't fully understand what's happening, right? Like, oh, if I press my, they won't use it, I'm sure, right? What were you thinking, Roy? Yeah. Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah, I was thinking, those are both good examples. I was thinking of, what's the big deal? Oh, this will get us to it. So this is of course, a painting. This wasn't actually a picture of what happened, but a painting of what happened, right? Jesus, look at that halo around his head, even though he's about to whip people out of there, right? This is a Jesus we sometimes are uncomfortable with, because he is not the holding a lamb Jesus. He is very righteous in his anger, which also tells us that when we see something like that makes our stomach turn, like you were saying, you were thinking about what they were doing to people, like that is what Jesus was feeling as well. Like that is a way that God reminds us, like when things are not just, it hurts, right? because it hurts for us, for ourselves, but it also hurts because we think of the people who it might exploit especially, right?
It also makes you think of what an imposing person Jesus must have been, because these folks didn't fight back. They just ran away.
They ran away.
He went nuts on them.
Yeah. So this is a picture I was just,
Now, I took offense at the fact that this was in this book, that the story is ironic. It's really quite unusual.
yeah.
For this is the Gospel of John is the only time that there is a good mention.
Really? Is there? Okay, I was not looking. Did she say that?
Because I had never heard the story out of
It didn't connect, yeah.
John. But in Matthew, Mark, and Luke, we have overturning tables and so on. But we do not have the violence of the flip.
Yes.
And she really went into that part. And I was very,
Yeah. This is a modern painting of what it might look like in our own experience. So if you see behind him, behind Jesus, getting that banker out of there, you see Wells Fargo and Citibank and JP Morgan and Goldman Sachs. So what are they saying?
I'm a customer 3 years.
And well, no, but what is it? What would this artist say that is happening today? Like, why is this a modern version of what Jesus is doing? Yeah.
and the loans, they don't give loans to the people that they don't want to. And in fact, that was in the paper yesterday.
Or they give loans to people. I think of the movie Big Short. Have you all seen The Big Short? It came out. It's about the 2008 housing bubble, that they might give loans to people that they know can't get back, right? So these are just a few. I actually saw this this one on social media this past week. And that's why I was thinking of it as I read it. I thought, I just saw something. This is the causes of financial loss in the U.S. So this is overdraft fees and this is burglary. So, right, is that, and then what are we always, why do we think about like, oh, I don't want someone to steal something from me. And yet we have financial institutions that, yes, and steal especially, I found, yes, but not for everybody. So, because I saw something, with this, I saw something that said it takes a lot of money to be poor, right? So to have enough money to not get into an overdraft fee, to move money around quickly when you realize that, that something has like bounced, a check has bounced. I know we don't use checks as much anymore, but that's possible. Some people don't have, the ability to have the money when they need the money, right? So that's why they might go to a place like payday loans. So some predatory bank practices, Black and Latinx people carry most of that burden. So it's not usually people who look like us. A closer look at overdraft banking fees illustrates the reality that racial inequality in the U.S., there is racial inequality in the U.S. financial system. And this was from Forbes, so just to let you know. This report finds that Black and Latinx Americans disproportionately pay overdraft fees compared to their white counterparts. Black households are 1.9 times more likely than white households to overdraft their banking accounts, and Latinx households are 1.5 times more likely. Systemic barriers, structural inequality, and discriminatory practices against these communities have made it harder for them to achieve financial health and make them more likely to be susceptible to overdraft fees. And they talk about how, even the same dollar, you work 1 hour and it's a different amount of money that you might get, whether that's for women or people who aren't white. The money that we make on an hour even is different. So then once we talk about overdraft fees, if I make $20 an hour, somebody else might only make 12, right? And there's a system involved there that kind of creates that. This other thing is a graph about hardship and income overdraft fees. So this is a hardship score, and I can send you guys this. It talks about what it means to be a hardship score, but the higher hardship score you would have, so 50 on the farthest side would be the highest. This is the percentage, the likelihood of overdraft fees. So the more hardship you experience, the more likely it is that you will overdraft, and of course, that's why we have this large part over there. And I was thinking about stuff during the pandemic. Prices spiked on certain things we needed, right? And this is only 8 weeks into the pandemic, so this is like really early on, so it's not even about today. But 8 weeks into the pandemic, of course, there were 36 million people who were unemployed, and yet the U.S. billionaire wealth increased, 6% increase. Only risen since we, are. So that just asks us, like, what is this money that we change back and forth? Like, does our money mean something when we use it? And what can it mean? I know, and that's kind of my question to leave us with. How might we use our money to bring justice? What would it look like for us? I know that I don't love buying things off Amazon, but I do it, right? Because I don't think all of the practices of Amazon, I'm not a Jeff Bezos lover. That's just how I feel, right? And yet I will use it. So for me, it might look like buying from small businesses more often. What does that mean? That means putting money in someone's pocket that might not otherwise get it, right? Because of the system involved. What are y'all thinking? What could it look like for each of us? I know that's the easiest one. Huh? Not likely for us to stop? Yeah. I know, and because it's easy.
Well, it's in our best interest to behave that.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, it's in your interest to shop at Amazon because you get good service
And I get it right away.
if you can't shop at Amazon, well, then you have to do with the best thing.
It might inconvenience me, right? Oh, it's so much more convenient to just push some buttons. Yeah, it's going to cost me in several ways, right? So I think this is like a charge for all of, like, when I think about this, when I take a moment from my everyday and I like remember the things that I know, that there are exploitative practices that I like play into all the time because it's easier. I of course feel guilty right away of like, oh no, what have I done? Like, what can I do to fix this?
Taught to be good stewards,
Yeah.
and so I think to be a good steward of my possessions.
Mm-hmm.
Why would I spend twice as much for something?
Mm-hmm.
And so
It asks us to think. Yeah.
and now we're being held accountable for what you taught me to do,
Mm-hmm.
and I'm being made to feel guilty.
Yes.
I have been a good steward.
I have been penny pinching, which means I might be paying for things that come from different places.
And that's a real conflict that is growing
Mm-hmm.
right now.
Yeah.
The fact that, okay, I want to do stuff, and now you're bringing me in every week.
Yeah. Yeah. Which I don't think I think that, I don't think we have a God who wants us, we don't have a God who came to condemn. We have a God who gave us the way to live fully, like to flourish. We have a God who says, oh, make sure that the ends of your crops, your fields, leave those alone, right? That's for somebody else. So what does it look like in our lives to like leave little portions of our life that other people could glean, right? It might mean that we don't get that little portion anymore, right? That's never been ours, right? Give to God what is God's.
There's no guarantee if you deny yourself, why do you think somebody who's deserving is going to get it?
Yes, I agree. We don't have guarantees.
One of the things I think folks need to do is, before they use their resources, they should do a little research.
Yeah.
Because, for example, there are certain organizations, charities, mission, whatever you call them, where the CEOs make an obscene amount of money.
Yeah.
And you hear about these, where there's $1.5 million salary for someone who's